Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Wings channel. I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of October 9th through the 15th, and we have entered eclipse season number 2, and we're already seeing some pretty wild events in the world that are related to the energies of this eclipse. But little business first. The Astrological Wings channel is a free video blog that I do every week on YouTube. And if you like what you're seeing here, and you have a YouTube account, you can become a follower and then also turn on your notifications so you'll know when I post a blog. It'll notify you. And remember, you don't have to use YouTube. It is available on podcasts too. It's usually just me talking to the camera, so really you don't need to see the video necessarily. And the podcast free you up to maybe do other things. So it's available on a lot of different podcasts. It's distributed through Buzzsprout. Just look it up on your favorite podcasts. It's also, I post the link on Instagram. There is an Astrological Winds channel there too, account there too. So become a follower if you have an Instagram account. Sometimes I post extra stuff on Instagram. Anyway, it is a free blog, and I'd really appreciate it if you pass the link along to somebody else when you're done. Even if you've done that before, please do it again. That's the way I'm trying to get the blog to grow in a very natural way. And the other way you guys can support me is I am a professional astrologer. I've been one for over 20 years. Do all kinds of professional readings. Would love to work with you or someone you know who's interested in that. And the best way to start that process up with no commitment is to email me at matthue823@gmail.com. That is matthue823@gmail.com. I will give more details on contact at the end of the blog. So if you're interested in getting that, just see that through and you'll get more information at the end. Remember everyone, if you're not super familiar with astrology, but you have an interest in it, don't get lost on the astrological terms that I'm telling you. Want to really hone in on what they mean for the weather report this week so that you can use that energy as best you can and not get caught up on what, some terms that you're trying to figure out and then you're missing the interpretation. So don't forget to, really listen in between. The first thing I want to do is just make a comment or two on, on what's going on in the world. And last week, I talked about how there was this very intense energy that was coming at the end of the week with the Mars exactly squaring Pluto, and at the same time Venus was quincunxing Pluto, and we had a Sun quincunx Jupiter, and then we also were in that cycle of that very intense full moon in Aries that I talked about a couple weeks ago. All that stuff, and then at the end of the week, last week, we had the moon in Cancer get into a T-square with the Mars-Pluto square. So it created this very tense energy, a cardinal T-square, the moon in Cancer, the Mars in Libra, and Pluto in Capricorn. And what happened? Right on that, around that time, we had two very extreme events occur. One of which very surprising, very violent, very unfortunately really a great example of Mars Pluto's violence potential, where we had this sudden attack in Israel, and civilians getting killed, kidnapped, the worst of the worst, which is what Mars Pluto can be when it gets ruthless. Remember, I said it's all about power struggles. It's all about wanting to create change, but getting very egotistical, very powerful with our ambition in trying to do that. And even if we can control that in our private lives, in our personal lives, that the world events will react many times to this energy as a trigger. And then we get the moon in Cancer, which is a very sensitive moon, about homeland, about protecting our family. And then you get Mars in Libra where it's really weak. Mars in Libra will either, it's if you're not going to make peace with me, then we're going to have war. And then we have Pluto in Capricorn right at the very end of Capricorn, and it's just going direct. Like I said, this week, and that's when all that energy of like that's been building up inside as rage and resentment and vengefulness can come out and explode in these very violent ways that bring creative transformation that is irrevocable and just changes things. And it can be a very, very intense thing. There's a lot of passion behind it. So you can see how this situation, and even like the Venus Pluto shows the quincunx there, shows the disconnect, the anger, the resentment at who you are perceiving as the enemy in this situation. And then the Sun quincunx Jupiter, like I said last week, gotta watch that one too. Goes to our head, makes us think that we're right and everyone else is wrong. Adopt like an arrogant kind of tone. So yeah, just those 5 things. This shows you guys again, really, astrology does not work in a vacuum. If that Mars square Pluto was all by itself, we likely wouldn't have had an event in the world as extreme as this. But those 4 other things, the Pluto going direct, the Sun quincunx Jupiter, Venus quincunx Pluto, the new moon, the T-square, the cardinal T-square, that stuff, I mean the full moon and the cardinal T-square, that really, boom, the perfect storm. And then the other good example of this intense energy is the complete destruction of the Republican House and their ability to even get a leader that they can have, once again, destroying themselves. I said Mars, Pluto, it's about self-destruction. We, like our own aims, we get so blinded by our own aims that we actually destroy them ourselves. So that's what the Republican Party of the United States is doing. And like I said, in the quarterly report, if you missed that one, when I did the equinox chart, I said it was going to be a really good quarter for Joe Biden, that because the Republicans are going to mess it up, they're going to give him the opportunity to be the one whose messaging is stronger this quarter in the United States. Okay, need to get to this week. There is a lot going on this week, and we've got that new moon, solar eclipse, second eclipse, and once again, this eclipse is already, when you get into eclipse season, it's already affecting stuff before it, and it affects it after it, and it makes changes that are very sudden and can be very upsetting, and they are irrevocable. As I've said it before, it's like walking down the street in one direction for a long time, and then suddenly you change and make a right or left onto another street. A complete change of direction, right? That's what eclipse seasons bring in. They bring it into our personal lives. Many of us, not all of us, but many of us, usually at least 1 out of 4 people I've seen get affected very strongly in the eclipse season in their personal life. And in the world events, we always see big world events get triggered during the eclipses. Stuff that have built up and finally just explode out. And there's a lot of Chiron energy involved this week. The sun, Mercury, and the moon are all opposite Chiron, and Venus is sesquiquadrate Chiron. So this shows there's going to be a lot of painful lessons to learn this week. A lot of wounding that we have to deal with. And it starts off right away on Tuesday, tomorrow, when the sun is in its annual exact opposition to Chiron. And on the same day, we also have Venus opposite Saturn, and we have Pluto actually stationing direct. But the Sun Chiron opposition, this is a really interesting opposition because it makes you feel like you're right about something, that there's no question that you're right, that the way you're judging something or the principles or values you have about something are not only right for you, but they're right for everybody else too. They're right for society. So like what this really sets up, the sun opposite Chiron, is battles with other people many times, because other people feel the same way, that they're right. Other groups feel the same way, that they're right. Other nations feel that they're the same way. So the energy, like I've said before so many times, the astrology doesn't have the judgment. The energy of sun opposite Chiron is I'm right, you're wrong, and I am going to push my agenda. That's the decision I'm making, even if it's hurting or wounding others, and vice versa. So this is really about getting into battles and because of our strong beliefs. And then it combines with this Venus opposite Saturn, and it just drains the emotion out of the equation. Venus opposite Saturn is actually, basically feeling like duties are trumping anything that's pleasurable right now. Like that there's certain things I have to do that are in relation to other people, reality, practical things that are going on. And basically what I need to do is get a control of my emotions and keep them inside, not share them with others, meet people one-on-one on this very practical, logical level, not show my hand so much emotionally. The problem is with that is there's a coolness, there's a disconnection, and there's also many times resentment behind that energy too, that there's a resentment about the duties that you have in relation to others or situations. So there's anger in that shutdown. The personal shutdown is going on because of inner anger. And when this combines with sun opposite Chiron, my concern is that there's a complete disassociation with other people that you are feeling that resentment with, that other people that they're not sharing that belief system with, and then the Pluto is going direct. So what do? We are going to push or try to coerce or power trip others in our lives or groups or in society into our way. Does this sound like what's going on in society right now, right? And so we have to bring that down into our personal life too. It's going on there. Then on Wednesday, we have another big shift. Talked about it in the monthly a couple weeks ago. Mars goes into Scorpio, the sign that it rules, but also the sign that's most like Pluto. And what are they doing right now? They're squaring each other. They're unfortunately bringing out some of the worst part of Scorpio. Mars and Scorpio, when it's positive, is actually really traditionally about agriculture. The good part of Mars was the strong, enduring worker. Someone who is in touch with the cycles of nature and agriculture and animal husbandry and those things, in that cycle, putting that energy that Mars brings us, that motivates us, that we have desires for, the actions for, that are based on our own survival and the protection of our loved ones, putting that energy into agriculture and growth and things like that. That was the way that Mars was used traditionally with Mars and Scorpio. Now, in this day and age, it's about persistence. It's about having an enduring energy. It's about having passion for what you believe in, for what your motivations are, for what your desires are, and the actions that you take behind them. But as we all know, who know some astrology well, Scorpio has a very shadowy side. Mars is not necessarily a good actor most of the time. It is a malefic planet, and many times acts out of ego, acts out of selfishness, acts out of defensive posturing. And when that goes into Scorpio with Pluto, that's where we get the destruction that we're seeing in the world. That's where we get self-destruction. That's where we get enemies. That's where we, project vengefulness out from the resentment that's built up inside. Scorpio is slow to anger. It really builds up a case first. It's like the lawyer who's make sure, but at that point, after 9 or 10 months of seeing or whatever, however long that is, the resentment reaches a point where their passion and the intensity of the attack that can come out of Scorpio energy through Mars and Pluto can be so intense that it can be actually mind-blowing in its intensity. So that's what we're up against. But we can create change in the world that's positive if we, can keep out of that, enemy, like that resentment and that passionate energy. So then on the next day, on Thursday, that's when the exact Venus sesquiquadrate Chiron is, which, once again, relationship issues, Chiron being hurt, being blocked in relationships. But what's also interesting is Mercury is semi-square Venus. This is the only tough aspect that those two planets can have between each other, if you don't know that, because Mercury and Venus, from the Earth's perspective, are so close to one another that they can never separate much more than the 45 degrees of a semi-square. But that is a tough aspect for them. It's very difficult on relationships. It's frustrating trying to get what you want out of relationships. The give and take is not balanced. So here it is, sesquiquadrate, Venus sesquiquadrate Chiron too. Feeling like, relationships may be stuck, snagged, not able to move forward from. And at the same time that day, Mercury is quincunxing Jupiter Thursday too. And this can give us a lot of really big ideas, a wide vision, but we're very sloppy with details. We're not taking care of those things, and it can actually disintegrate into hypocrisy, really. Like, we can actually try to hold others to standards that we may not even be meeting ourselves. And that's really what this is telling us. Hey, yeah, you have a really wide vision right now, very tolerant too, can bring some tolerance into this equation, which the Mars-Pluto frankly could use right now. But the thing here is that you have to live up to your own standards before you start blurting out at others about how they're not, or you put on the hat of the hypocrite very quickly with this energy. Then on Friday, we get Mars trining Saturn. This, to me, is really most likely the best energy of this week, because this is like the patient release of a very enduring energy. It sees some kind of project. If you have some kind of project that's very long term, and it's not, not the kind of project that's immediately giving you rewards. It's like the rewards are step by step. A lot of the rewards right now may even just be in the experience of the doing of that, gaining that, learning a lot about yourself through what you're doing with Mars trine Saturn. This is like great energy for working, for doing physical output, for using the skills we have with our hands and our body for doing something physical, just pushing that energy and building something solid step by step, rather than something that's built like on a house of cards or a whim. So this is like, really the best energy of this week, because you can focus this energy in on some kind of project or your work, and and even get recognition for that. People will see how detail oriented, how thorough you're being, how you're being a really careful, good worker. So this is excellent energy to tap into this week on any kind of, in your work, in your job, in your career, or any kind of physical projects you have going on. Okay, let's get to the big thing this week. That is eclipse season number 2 of this year, getting exact for the first time in the next couple weeks, and that is with our new moon at 22 degrees Libra. So, it's a solar eclipse. The new moon always brings in a solar eclipse. Now, the moon in this eclipse is opposite that Chiron, like I said, and also opposite Eris, and is actually on the long midpoint of Chiron and Eris. So like what I said before, this is a week where there's going to be a lot of painful things happening, a lot of painful decisions to make, painful emotions to like heal from, like people doing things and world events that are very, very like distressful and painful to us. And then, you bring in Eris too, and it's just chaotic. The change that's coming in, like once again, let's just reference the two situations in the world I referenced already. The situation in Israel right now, the situation in the House with the Republicans right now. Complete chaos, complete revenge factor. That's Eris. Complete I want to hurt you, Eris combined with Chiron, because I've been hurt so much. All I want to do now is strike back. This is a very potent full moon, new moon with that. We have to be really careful with that. And I especially think with bigger events. Now, let's just go to the new moon in Libra. Once again, new moon is a time for new beginnings, right? It's a time to plant seeds. So the first thing you guys want to do on a personal level is look where 21 degrees Libra is in your chart, okay? Whatever house that's in, that's the area of life where you're planting new seeds. So it's in the second house. It's about like things that make you secure, your assets, the way you feel about yourself, the things that you're doing. That's where you want to have new beginnings there, and any planet that you have that's around 20, 21, 22 degrees is going to aspect this new moon tightly and actually flavor the way that energy comes out too. But what does the new moon in Libra want? The new moon in Libra wants everyone to get along, basically. And its highest thing, Libra is about the other and harmony and balance with the other. Everybody feeling satisfied. Everybody feeling like they didn't give up too much to get what they wanted. So there's harmony with others. That's what we're really seeking with the new moon in Libra. And we're also like seeking to bring more creativity into our life. Libra is a highly creative sign, so it's a highly creative mind. It wants to and it wants to beautify things around it, like our environment, our home, our surroundings, or whatever we're physically in contact with. We want to bring that beauty, and so it can bring us a lot of highly intellectual, creative ideas and really spur our creativity to beautify and make things more beautiful around us. And we really want to have rapport with others. We are really seeking, we learn about ourselves through others with Libra. And so the negative part of Libra is, the Libra moon, is sometimes being, first of all, indecisive because we're trying to please everyone. And then we end up kind of being caught falling short of doing that because there's too many people to please. There's a certain point where you just have to accept that everyone is only going to be able to be pleased so much and may not get everything they want. But the other thing is, with Libra energy, is that it can't. Libra is seeking justice too. In that harmony, it wants to see equality and justice. And if it can't get that, Libra, the alliance it makes one-on-one with others, can turn into the enemy instead and will declare war on the others. I've said this before, many of the greatest generals in the world were Libra Sun people because they believed in a cause that they were fighting for, and that was just and true and right. And that was the only way to bring balance back. So that is what Libra can turn into when it's not, in that energy. Now this opposite Chiron, like I said, it shows that it's like there's a lot of like pain, that we're reacting to, that we're very sensitive to others and situations right now. And that, trying to find that balance can be very difficult. Now, Mercury is opposite Chiron too, which can actually give us a little bit of help there, because when Mercury's opposite Chiron, we can bring in the intellect a bit, which blends in well with Libra energy being an air energy, so that we can actually see both sides of an issue. We can put ourselves in the other party's shoes. And that's where diplomacy starts, is having the ability to see that the other has needs too. And even if they're in conflict with yours, that you shouldn't necessarily feel automatically reactive and defensive about that we can maybe find some common ground. If we each can give up a little, we can get most of what we want. So I think Mercury can really help this in this situation. What's interesting too, the ruler of the new moon is Venus, right? Libra's sign. Venus's sign is Libra, and so Venus, remember, just on Sunday, yesterday, went into Virgo, right? And so not in a strong place, not somewhere where Venus really likes to be, but that's saying like there's a sense of duty that comes in. So maybe once again that can feed, having to like sit down and go through the details of negotiating and meeting some agreement, either in our personal lives or with groups or in society or whatever it may be. Venus and Virgo can say, hey, my duty right now, if I really want peace and love and harmony, which is what Venus wants, is to, get into the details and help Libra negotiate and how we're going to meet some common ground again. But, Venus normally does not like to be in Virgo. It has a highly critical eye, but we can use that critical eye to help with our negotiations. Now, back to the eclipse, right? This eclipse is what was born way back on June 22nd, 1248 at the South Pole, year 1248. Okay, that's when this eclipse was born. And it's going, and it's it's pretty full right now. It's beyond it's beyond the halfway point of its life. But it's still in a very strong place. It's going to be going on, I think, for another 300 or 400 years still. So yeah, it's probably about 60-70% of the way through its life. So it's a strong eclipse. It's going to be seen by a lot of the United States, actually, and so so this eclipse, like all eclipses, has a birth chart that is still, just like you're in my birth chart, always with it. Every time it comes up every 18 years, like eclipses do, there's a birth chart. I don't know. What's interesting is in the birth chart of this eclipse, it has a Mars square Pluto too, just like the aspect we're having this week. So there is your other big trigger for this massive event that's going on in the Middle East right now and literally changing people's lives for good. There is a Mars Pluto in the birth chart, and actually the sun and moon, because it was an eclipse at a new moon, we're trine Pluto too. So there's very strong energy to change things in this eclipse. There's a lot of built up intense passion behind wanting to transform things, and even if that requires violence and intensity and stuff like that, it's going to come out. And even with the trine to Pluto, it shows people who are in power, who have the ability to do that, can really let it flow out right now. But it, can flow out into that Mars Pluto and be a very violent change. So, that's one of the reasons again why we're having such an intense reaction already to this energy, and we have to continue to look for this in our lives and in the world. This eclipse is really wanting to bring in some creative transformation and shake the world up in doing so, and bring irrevocable changes. And it's seeking some new kind of justice or balance or equilibrium. It's been out of balance for so long that it's now reacting in a very violent way to that, So it's going to be hard, to keep our discipline and strength in this, but we do have some allies. We have that Mercury giving us the ability to look at both sides, which helps Libra do that too, which is Libra's already natural inclination. And even Virgo, Venus in Virgo's judgment to be able to do that. But we have to be really clear too that, there's a lot of people who at this point the way they're seeing things is based on like just so much resentment and turmoil and anger that's built up to this point. And that it may it may be difficult to get along with certain people, and that we may be drawn into battles with those people. Now, the last thing I want to mention, getting close to the end here, is Sunday there is a Sun quincunx Uranus, and this is very rebellious energy. This is energy that will, any kind of restriction or authority, it's going to push out against, even if it may not be the best thing. It's impulsive energy. It's freedom seeking, and it will break responsibilities and duties and obligations in order to shake things up. It does bring the benefit of having more freedom, but there's a need to let go of certain things and just go with the flow of whatever events are going on. If there's upsetting events that are occurring to you next weekend, this is saying, yeah, just go with those events. Learn to let go of what you're holding on to, and it will bring you greater freedom. But we can be very impulsive with this energy. We can, hurt ourselves really once again. So, I really think, we're going to have to try to use that Libra balance as best we can. And then that Mars trine Saturn this week, and have like the long-term picture in mind. But there's going to be a lot of upsetting events, even if they don't hit you in your personal world, which I'm sure most of us are probably getting hit by some things. And like I said, look at in your chart where that new moon is landing, and that'll probably tell you the area of your life where you're going to see a lot of things that need a new beginning and need to be changed, need to be creatively transformed, and maybe need to find new balance with others in relation to that. So a lot of intensity this week going on to deal with, and that's what I got for us. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the world events continue to unfold. The last time this eclipse happened was 18 years ago. So that was right during the Bush years of the Iraqi and Afghani wars at their height. And so the Middle East is conflagrating again. It has a tendency to bring in all the world powers into that, so it's going to be interesting to see also how, like, there's the split in the Republican Party in the United States. This is going to create a lot more chaos in that, most likely, too. And like I said, in the quarterly thing I did a couple weeks ago during the equinox, this is really, you can already see this is going to give Biden, who is shown in that chart to be strong, the upper hand, that his messaging is going to make sense to Americans more than a party that can't even agree with itself. So we have some good examples to keep an eye on. And I know we all have struggles in our personal life. I know, the world is not an easy place right now. And really, it's never been, guys. It's not, there is a law of cause and effect that goes on, whether people want to believe that or not. And, our acts need to be cleaned up. And that's what astrology can help us do. That's what so many other strong knowledge and wisdom that we can get in many different ways can help us do, is to help clean up our acts, so that, like, these laws, these natural laws of cause and effect don't slam us so much anymore. We can begin to unwind them. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. This is a free service I've been doing for years. It's been on YouTube now for 4 years or something like that. It's also on podcasts. Look it up on your favorite podcast. It's put out by Buzzsprout. Over 20 of them pick it up. You can pick it up on Apple iPodcasts, something like that. Be free of the video screen. Also, Instagram has an Astrological Winds account. I post extra comments during the week many times on that. You can Facebook me, and private Facebook account. My name is Matthew with 2 T's, and Lawton, Lauten, and I also post the link there. Best way and remember to pass the link on, please. My free service. That's that way I ask you to pay it forward. Best way to support me, professional astrologer, do all kinds of readings, just great. I'm really happy that, with the work that I've done with people and the responses, and thank you so much for the positive feedback for people, not only for the blog, but for the readings. And I'd love to help you or someone else you know do all kinds of readings: natal, predictive, children's, relationship, horary, election, fixed star. And I also do group events. If you need a lecture, class, question and answer section, workshop, mini readings for your event, all that stuff. Start the process. There's no commitment. Just email me at matthe823@gmail.com. That's matthe823@gmail.com. Okay, everybody, let's try to use that new moon in Libra to create some harmony in that place where we need it the most. Thank you. I'll see y'all next week.